Hello and welcome to the Mid-Ohio Valley Public Forum video podcast. This podcast features issues of interest to the residents of the Mid-Ohio Valley, mainly encompassing Wood County, West Virginia, and Washington County, Ohio. Right now, with the coronavirus pandemic, civic life has changed greatly throughout the country.
This is a presidential election year, and one of the big changes has been that candidates for public office are not able to campaign as they normally would. This is affecting particularly local candidates who would normally be door knocking and going to ice cream socials and bean dinners and all kinds of local meet and greets, and use that as a way to meet their voters. That's not possible this year.
So many of our initial podcasts will be interviews with candidates for local office. If you are a local candidate and you're interested in being interviewed on our show, you can reach out to us through our Facebook page, the MOV Public Forum.
And today our interview is with Wendy Tuck. Wendy is a candidate for City Council District 4, which just happens to be the district that I live in. Her district is the district surrounding the Church of the Good Shepherd, which is known locally as the Pink Church. And the boundaries reach out to approximately St. Mary's Avenue on the west. And it actually reaches over to across the Little Canal River to encompass a little strip over there by Badger Lumber. So it's a pretty stretched out district. It is the poorest district in Parkersburg.
So welcome, Wendy. We are delighted that you were able to make yourself available for the show. And we're excited to get you interviewed so that we can have you tell your constituents and the voters what they need to know about you so that they can make an informed decision.
Great, thank you.
So we're going to jump right in.
Okay.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Give us any, tiny bio. Do you have an elevator speech? We were traveling together in an elevator, and you had 1 minute to persuade me to vote for you. What would you say?
I would say that our neighborhood is the poorest one in Parkersburg, so really there's nowhere to go but up. And that I think a lot of times people that have things rough are really scrappy and hardworking and have to figure things out. And I am really looking forward to tapping that kind of energy and talent and skill and matching that with the resources they need to get things done. There's just nowhere to do but better from here.
So what is motivating you to run for office? What's the one main thing that made you decide to do this?
I've lived in this neighborhood for 38 years. And I walk it almost every day, and it just hurts. You know, it hurts to see these houses falling down. It hurts to hear the stories of people that live here. And I've never been one to sit on the sidelines. I've always been one to try to get in there and make things better. And I really enjoy doing that. And I look forward to really working together with people in my neighborhood to make things better.
What do you think you have to offer that your competition in the race might not?
I have years of experience working with broad coalitions. I've been a teacher, but I've also been the executive director of 2 nonprofits. And we had extensive networks to solve a variety of community problems. One of them was a domestic violence shelter. So I worked with churches and law enforcement and the courts, as well as social services and children's agencies and things like that. The other one was a volunteer center. And one of the things that we worked very hard on was coordinating volunteers for disaster relief. We also learned to write a lot of grants, to try to find outside sources for programs and projects. And I think that I have really good connections in the community. And I'm pretty creative and hardworking in terms of finding extra resources. So I think that would give me an advantage.
What would you say is your wow factor? What is the one thing that would make someone say, wow, I'm going to vote for her?
I care. I think of all the things. I've never done anything because it's a job. I've done everything because I care about people. I empathize a great deal. I try to put myself in their shoes, like what's going on in their life, what do they need? And I have a lot of confidence in people that they really can figure out problems, but sometimes they need resources and support and people to work with. So I think that my wow factor is just that I really like people. I really like working together to solve problems.
If you're elected, what's the one thing or the most important thing that you want to accomplish during your term in office?
I think the biggest concern here is safety. I've had neighbors talk about if they go outside and there's somebody walking in the street, they'll hide in the bushes before they leave their house and get to their car. So I think one of the things I'd like to see would be the return of neighborhood watch, perhaps networks of security cameras that some of the neighbors already have that informally, and greater police presence, but presence as known and familiar with the neighborhood and to be seen as a resource and a help within the community. So those would be, I think that would be my top priorities, just the safety of residents.
I have a follow-up to that. What's one city ordinance that you would like to see changed or abolished, or one that you specifically would like to see created?
I've thought a lot about that, and I think that one of my beliefs is that when people have a livable wage, they're much more likely to have a settled life. And so I would really like to have the city have raise the minimum wage to a livable wage so that people can afford to buy what they need. And then they're just much more independent, self-reliant, and they can reach out to help others as well.
How do you feel about compromise?
It's necessary. I believe that everybody has a very valid point of view. Certainly people represent different interests. And I also believe that when you listen deeply to what's at the heart of problems, you almost can always find something in common that satisfies most people. But I do believe sometimes you have to give, and sometimes you give a little more than other times. Generally, I think that people have to stay true to their values, but how you work that out can be open to many different ways.
To parlay right into this question, how well do you play well with others? Can you give us any concrete examples?
Yeah. Like I said, my networks with the Volunteer Center and the Eve in Marietta. But when I was a teacher at Options, which was a school for substance abuse, kids with substance abuse problems, we had 4 teachers, and we really had to work things out to cover the entire curriculum for students so they could afford to graduate in 4 years. And we really had to work out discipline. We had to work out what courses who would cover. We had to work out schedules for the kids. You know, there's just a lot of different dynamics with families, with the kids themselves. And that was just a really good time where you felt like the overall commitment was to the kids. And then you also had to have a good school setting that was well run, orderly, calm, and help them get the education that they needed.
So, I'm sorry. What do you think your worst enemy would say about you?
I take I tend to see all points of view. And sometimes people say I have a hard time making up my mind. And some might say that, well, you take this position one time and you take that position another time. But really, it's more that I'm really thinking through what is the problem, what is the solution. And as I think about it, as I get more information, my position becomes a lot clearer. And at the beginning, it may be all over the place. And then I kind of do the research and do the, talking with people about the situation, and I come to a better decision. But, at first I'm not going to have a real, unless, I might, but I think that can be a weakness of mine, but it can also be a strength.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think is your best quality?
I'm a good listener, and I am really able to draw out the root of problems. Sometimes you present a solution that at first looks right, but then, there might be something that's not quite right about that. And I really do research issues, and I try to look at it from all points of view. And then is it fair? Is it equal? Is it just? Is it going to work? Is it effective? And can we pay for it? And I guess those would be the things that I would measure a decision against.
So political office holders are leaders. If you had to describe your leadership style, how would you describe it?
I'm very much with. I believe that I like Cuomo's statement to the first responders that he would never ask them to do anything that he wouldn't do. And I believe that's true, that a leader doesn't send somebody in to do something that they won't do themselves. I mean, you might be trained for things, but just generally in terms of safety or that. But I also believe that you get a lot of information working with people, and that the solutions that you come up with are have more perspectives on them. But I also think that that you need a leader that can kind of pull things together and move forward, and with a lot of confidence and a lot of ability to see the big picture. I think that that I would be a good decision maker in that kind of situation.
What are your personal core values?
Truth, I would say, is a big one. I do not like deceit. I'm not very good at, I would just rather have a straightforward answer, than somebody that kind of hedges or is not very clear on where they stand. I really believe in respect. I believe in treating people fairly and respectfully. And I have a lot of value for, I think, working together to find a common solution. I don't know what you call that, cooperation, I guess, so that the solution is fair and just. Mm-hmm.
Do you know your win number? And if so,
I do. My opponent ran as a Democrat last time, and he actually defeated the Republican candidate by 7 votes. So the win number is 345 votes that I need to carry.
All right. So how often have you attended Parkersburg City Council meetings as a citizen?
It depends. Well, probably, I would say not as frequently as I would like. I would think that in probably in 3 months, I would go once in a 3-month period. I do keep up with the newspaper articles, and I go online to find the agenda and things like that. I sometimes end up working in the evenings, and so sometimes it's very hard to get to meetings that are in the evening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think we're ready for you, Jen.
Yep. What do you see as the main role of a city council member in a strong mayoral model city like Parkersburg?
Mm-hmm. I think that the main thing about having a city council is that you need different parts of the city represented equally. And the mayor certainly has the big picture, but I think the council members kind of have their feet on the ground. and that to make decisions for the whole city, it's really wise to include people that live in different parts of town or different constituencies. And I think that is really important, partly because both the problems are different in each area, but also your strengths and resources are different. And so what one district might or might not have, another district would. And I think you really need a lot of cooperation. And I think the mayor needs the input from the whole city. I think he really needs to hear what's going on and how we can serve them best as a council.
Mm-hmm. What do you think you will enjoy the least about serving on city council?
I don't know. I can be kind of a bean counter in some ways. When I worked at the nonprofits, I had to do a lot of financials and things like that. So budgets are fine. I enjoy that process of that. I think that, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably if, I don't know. I would really relish public input on decisions. And I think if a decision got made without appropriate citizen input, that would be distressing to me. That if it was a matter that affected a certain group of people and they weren't heard, I think that would bother me a lot.
All right.
What excites you most about serving on city council?
Solving problems. I just feel that it's funny, just you feel like there's a lot of good stuff waiting to happen. It's kind of like an egg in a way. But I know it's a discouraging time. But I also feel like people kind of think hard about, okay, now what? When times are hard. And I really like the creativity that comes when you really have to solve problems. And I really think that our city has a lot going for it, but we tend to get discouraged or think that it's downhill. And I've never found that to be true. I think people do get discouraged, but I think when you know your neighbors, when you know your people, and you have other examples that are working in other places, or you can look at what we're doing well and you can just build on that. And I think a lot of it is tapping the resources that we have and that are really underused in our citizens.
As a citizen of Parkersburg, what are you most proud of about the city?
Our arts community. I think that the Arts Center, the Actors Guild, the Smoot, Arts Bridge, I think those are just tremendous assets. And those are the kind of things that beautify a community. Like, you can have a very functional and very efficient community, but I think the arts are what add the special touch to it and make it beautiful, make it a good place to live when there's a lot of encouragement of creativity, both at a individual level, whether they're teaching classes or something like that, but also the community projects that go on within the arts. I think those are just super, super special.
So now we're going to move to a different section. We're going to put you in the hot seat and
okay. Fair enough.
do what we're going to call rapid fire. So the two of us have been present at nearly every city council meeting since the current city council was sworn in. We've noticed that a lot of what the council does is routine and of not much interest to the public. We've also noticed that a lot of issues come up in council are not controversial and are either resolved by unanimous or close to unanimous vote.
But there have been several hot button issues that got a lot of interest from the public and were controversial and divided the city council. So the issues have, for the most part, been decided, resolved, but they can always crop back up. And so we'd like to get your take on these issues.
So for this purpose, we'll use the support, not support, or support with some changes.
Okay.
So the first issue was the non-discrimination ordinance that came about 3 years ago.
I would support that. Is that all I need to say? Is just a yay or no? Okay, yeah, I would support that.
Okay, the motorized bicycle ban that they tried to pass. Is that something you'd support the ban or not? Or
I would not support it as it is. I would want some changes in that.
okay,
Raising city fees for trash collection, fire, and police.
Support with changes. I think it's going to be necessary.
financial support for Parkersburg homecoming and other civic events.
Can I say it depends on the budget? I guess support with changes. I mean, I just think that we just, with the COVID, a lot of things are in flux right now, you know, in terms of that. So I think it would have to be with changes.
The fireworks ban.
Ban?
Mm-hmm.
I support the ban.
Splash pad project.
Support with changes.
Mhm.
A social media code of conduct policy.
Support.
Dumpster fencing and cleanup.
Support.
And residential property cleanup.
Support.
Okay. We're into the wild card section.
Okay.
These are the super easy questions.
Okay.
So we'll wind down on an easy note. If you were the PR person for our city, or were at the League of Cities meeting as a representative, what would you brag about our city?
Golly, I mean, in a way, I like us being an Ohio River town. I think that that there's a long, proud history of being an Ohio River port city. And I think that the Blennerhassett Island, the ferry, Point Park, I think that we could do a lot more development of our connection to river, you know, whether it's traffic on the river, recreation, resources from the river, and keeping it clean, keeping it pretty, making it, you know, kind of a highlight of, I mean, that's our history. That's how we got settled, was, you know, the river. But I think that would be something I would, you know, think about and be proud of.
So what are you passionate about?
Kids, children. Steve and I were foster parents before we had kids of our own, and we've just always had a real heart for kids that struggle. It's not their fault at all. But, you know, I mean, I've taught and I've worked with a lot of kids in a lot of different situations, and, you know, they're the next generation and they depend on adults. You know, they just can't do it themselves, you know, so we adults are really responsible for children. And they're just a delight. I mean, they can be a handful as well, but just the commitment to helping kids grow up strong and free and well educated and healthy is just a huge, huge part of what my life has been about.
What do you do in your off time? What are your hobbies?
I like to walk. I quilt. You know, you can see the quilt behind me.
Beautiful.
I did that one. And I do a fair amount of reading. So I think that, you know, reading, writing, quilting, and walking, those are my interests. The cats. Like to cook, garden.
Now, what is most unique about you?
I am something of a, I am very thorough and I love to research and find out about things and know how things work. And I'm really a Carl Jung fan. I guess that might be kind of unique, but I just kind of believe that there's something that joins everything at some point, you know, that we're kind of a part of each other and part of what's around us and between us. And I know that sounds a little bit hard to define, but I'm always intrigued by what makes people, what they have in common. You know, what do they have in common? How are we alike? A lot of differences, but I love finding that common ground between people.
We hope we haven't stumped you too hard or asked you too many hard questions. You've been very forthcoming and we appreciate you joining us this evening. So now we're going to give you this floor and allow you space to direct voters to your website, your Facebook, your Act Blue, or anything else you'd like to tell them about.
Okay. Like I said, we've been in this neighborhood for 37 years and our kids have been educated here. So we're totally committed. We're not going anywhere. But my Facebook page is Wendy Tuck 4, FOR, PKB City Council. I have a lot of information there about our neighborhood and about me personally as well. If you'd like to donate to my campaign or contribute, most of my expenses right now are stamps and letters, you know, trying to reach out to people that way. But you simply type in actblue.com and then when it asks you the name, you just type in my name, Wendy Tuck, and it will direct you to follow the prompts. And that's a great way you can contribute and help me out here. And I guess I just want to say that you're not just electing one person, you're really electing a neighborhood with a voice at the table. And that is my real commitment, is to be a voice for this neighborhood and this district. And I will work for you and I will speak for you and I will represent our concerns and our interests and bring our skills to the table as well.
Right. Thank you, Wendy. I'm glad that you joined us, and I think voters will find out a lot about you if they watch this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.